Guys, Transformers 1 is so good. I need everyone to go see this film in theaters right now. I've never been the biggest Transformers fan. I mean, they're pretty cool, don't get me wrong, but as someone whose only real exposure to this IP was the Michael Bay movies, the lore just never really seemed interesting to me. I would never watch these films for the story, but only to see badass robots fighting each other. That is, until Transformers 1. Without a doubt, this is the best Transformers movie, and what I love about it so much is the journey between Orion Pax and D16, who would later be known to us as Optimus Prime and Megatron. Starting the journey with them as best friends and slowly having them become these iconic characters is a genius move. Now, it goes without saying, I don't know anything about Transformers lore. I don't know if this is the same story in the original animated show or in the comics, but seeing this story play out in real time in this film was so interesting. Where I always thought Megatron was a pretty standard one-note villain in other films, Transformers 1 makes him layered, complicated, and I honestly even found myself rooting for him in select moments. They play around a lot with the idea of D16 turning bad, but rather than making it feel predictable, they make it so that you don't want to see him turn. His friendship with Orion is a pretty lovable one, and you don't want to see these two on opposite sides. Brian Tyree Henry absolutely killed it as Megatron in his performance, and for me, he was the heart of the film. The character can be really funny and charismatic in the more lighthearted moments, but when the stakes get higher, Brian Tyree Henry brings a strong sense of passion to the character, and his performance really drives the tonal shift that brings us to a darker, more intense second half of the film. The same really goes for Optimus Prime. This is the first time I've really seen Optimus doubt himself. This version doesn't really see himself as a leader, but rather takes the mantle as a necessity. Alita and Bumblebee are really there to support him. When we start the film, Orion Pax is a really brash, in over his head, kind of rebellious character, and D16 is really a by-the-book, follow-the-rules, stick-to-the-status-quo type of characters. Almost complete opposites from how we usually understand them to be. I think Chris Hemsworth does a pretty good job of making a character like Optimus Prime feel more human. His performance is subtle, but just as engaging as Brian Tyree Henry. The two actors play off each other really well, and it's not something I'd expect from an animated film like this. Also, this film is just hilarious. I'd say most of the jokes landed for me, but it's also a testament to the film that it's not throwing jokes at you every 5 seconds. It understands when to get serious, and it keeps that tone intact when necessary. And all the jokes are even natural for the characters. Bumblebee, B-127, or Badassatron is definitely the comedic relief of the film. He's a character that has a joke in almost every line of dialogue, so I appreciate that when the film does get more serious, he takes a bit of a backseat. He isn't sidelined by any means, but his stake in the story isn't as strong as the other characters, because this is very much a story about Optimus Prime and Megatron. So I love that the film sticks to its guns and keeps it focused. If I had to give any negatives, I'd say maybe the second act drags a little bit. There's a certain point where you can feel the pacing slow down, and I think it's just the film's way of trying to shift into a more serious tone. But I did have a couple moments where I wanted the film to move on to the next scene. And I won't spoil who the villain is just in case you haven't seen the film, but in hindsight, the villain wasn't as engaging as I wanted them to be. I love the backstory and I love the reveal of the villain, but ultimately, he's just a plot device there to move the story between Orion Pax and D16 forward. Honestly, that's really about it. I think Transformers 1 easily takes a spot as one of my favorite releases of the year, and I'd recommend that everyone give the film a try. It's fun, exciting, action-packed, it's emotional, it's everything you want out of a film. I hope the film does well enough to get a sequel greenlit. Now, I'm not the kind of person that wants every great film to get a sequel, but Transformers 1 does leave some narrative threads open to be explored in future films, and I just really want to see that play out. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below, and I'm going to catch you all on the flippity flip.
On one hand, you have a great leading actor and a solid premise for a cool action thriller, but on the other hand, you have a director who